There is no injustice in this universe, you understand?
So first, I bring a message from Jerry and Woo Woo, come back to Sedona. And I think everybody agrees. Yesterday was just so amazing and off the charts, just like today has been. And there's some things have bubbled up from that and from some questions this morning. And one of them is about the original first thought. And as you were talking this morning, and I know going back and kind of untangling that spider web doesn't really serve anything.
Can't do it.
But I'm curious, was the first thought, I create my own reality?
The first thinkers, let's start here. We started to say, as you were commenting on why it is not necessarily beneficial to go back to the first thought, we started to say because you could not, as the perceiver that you now are, perceive the first thought.
Because?
It would be too little momentum, different frequency. Who you are today could not perceive the first thought.
Okay.
In a similar way, now this is a bulky comparison, but in a similar way to, you would not find the mental contemplation of the one-celled organism interesting either.
Right.
You'd have to be a one-celled organism to enjoy that conversation. And so start from there.
So was the ones...
Well, we don't mean start from the one. What we mean is, since the ability to perceive must be present before the thought can expand. You see, this is the thing that this new understanding is bringing to the equation. You're really going to like this, being someone who's been moving along with this so intently through all this conversation. So today you're hearing us say, and we're saying it so emphatically because we want so much for you to get it, that you stand in your now having accomplished a certain vibration and are inspired to the next thought. So doesn't that say that your perception is essential to the thought that comes? So rather than saying, ever again, I'm the thinker of a thought, let's say, I am the creator of the atmosphere that makes me conducive to the receiving of the expanded thought. So that makes the perceiver, that makes the orchestrator of the atmosphere essential to the expansion of the thought. So now we're not talking about the evolution of thought, we're talking about the evolution of the perceiver of the thought. It's the old, if the tree falls in the forest and no one was there, did it make a sound?
Right.
If there was no one there to perceive it, then it's irrelevant.
Makes sense. This morning I had an experience that I've never had before. And what happened is I jumped out of bed really fast and started to stretch, and all of a sudden felt a little woozy because I moved into a different physical position really fast and kind of lost my bearings and fell back onto the bed. And it was like, I felt like I was sort of, am I going to lose consciousness? Am I not? But I was curious.
It's energy. Esther's been staggering around all weekend.
But I was curious, as I was sort of like woozy and kind of falling back and not able to hold myself on my legs, is that what the beginning of the death experience feels like? Is that how, because it didn't feel bad, it was just sort of a relaxing into it, falling back. I didn't get hurt, I just sat down and sat there for a minute. But was that sense of release?
It's similar. Have you had out-of-body experience?
No.
The out-of-body experience feels like that too. It's an altering of perception is what it is. And so one of the things that's happening, anybody else getting some of that energy feeling in a more unusual way? Some have acclimated to it because they hang around here often. But the most important thing to understand about energy is that everything is perceptual. And so the way you are perceiving it has to, in other words, as we've been visiting here in the hours, and you were particularly enlivened by the discussion from yesterday.
Extremely.
You deliberately focused. You moved to new vibrational awarenesses on that frequency, then went to sleep and woke up in a vibrational frequency that you have never experienced before. And as you and then as you attempted to get up in your normal way, the vibrational frequencies, as they were sort of colliding with one another, is what gave you that feeling. Esther used to really feel it. It's the reason that for years she sat in that chair in order to receive Abraham, because she did not feel stable on her feet, especially as we were coming into her experience. She called it a feeling of swooning. That is that, right. But as you acclimate more to it, and you will, that's that paradigm shift that we're talking about.
And that I think yesterday, and I've been to plenty of workshops, but the completion of that workshop, and I always love it when at the close of the workshop everybody's clapping and everybody's feeling good about how well it's went. But yesterday it felt more intensified, it felt more magnified. It almost, from at least from my human perspective in using human words, is that quantum leapish? I mean, is that what we kind of approach when when it just feels like almost rapturous to be there?
It is quantum leapish, except that you don't really want quantum leaps, because
right.
Quantum leaps are harder on you. When Jerry and Esther first met us in this way, they were living in Phoenix, and they heard about a vortex, or more than one vortex, in Sedona, and it fascinated them. Esther was still receiving through the typewriter. She was barely beginning to receive us in terms of verbalization, so it was very early in their experience, in the opening of Abraham experience. And they heard about these vortices and immediately wanted to come. And as they were driving up, Jerry asked the question, will we be able to, first of all, find them? And we said, yes, there are plenty of people who guide you to them, but the whole area essentially is. And will we feel them? What will our experience be? And we said, really what a vortex does is amplify your experience. So if you are, for example, if you have a headache, it's going to get stronger. If you are in love, you're going to be more in love. If you are tuned in, tapped in, turned on, you're going to be more tuned in, tapped in, turned on. In other words, it's like a magnifying glass being placed over you. Now, your entire planet is becoming that vortex these days. And as more and more of you are acknowledging the vibrational nature of your beingness.
And is that what we're seeing in terms of, it always has seemed to me that technology can expand by leaps and bounds so quickly. When you look where we were 30 years ago and are today, it's phenomenal. But when you look where we are, at least from my perspective on, say, human rights or equality or whatever, that's been sort of slower going. But what we're witnessing today, in terms, let's just use the topic of marriage equality, is that part and parcel of this awakening that we're experiencing?
Well, everything is. We are appreciating the comparisons that you were making there. The reason that technology is expanding by leaps and bounds is because it's a new science, and the old thought isn't holding it back so much. Where everything that you've been thinking about in terms of social sciences and even marriage equality is slower going, because there are so many who are stuck in their awareness of what is or what has been.
Right.
So, and in technology, this is an important thing to understand. Fewer people are involved in the expansion, and they are, for the most part, people who must be inspired to receive the new idea.
And non-resistant to those ideas.
Non-resistant, that's why thus the word inspired.
Right.
So, bring us back around. We're on the brink of some good conversation.
Right.
Chew more. Chew some more.
Chew some more. All right. So, I'm trying to think where we started with this one. In terms, it was the paradigm shift of the experience yesterday afternoon. It was a palpable physical experience of and a cognitive experience of just feeling that expansion. Quantum leaps aren't advisable, but paradigm shifts
are inevitable.
So are we always... So when we're in a group like this that's focused here with Abraham and Esther and everybody else, are those paradigm shifts pretty much inevitable to be that powerful?
It is logical that they might be. And we want to emphasize that it's not necessary to come together in a group because everything that we're talking about here is your allowance of your connection to that broader perspective. We're talking about viewing the world through the eyes of Source. And in that swooning, in that merging process, we're talking about, you see what happened? This is the most important thing to understand. You're really going to like this. This is really at the heart of the question that you're poking around in. For the most part, life causes you to explore contrast and launch rockets. And for the most part, humans don't do an especially good job of keeping up with their own expansion. But more and more are coming to do that. So when a group of people gathers, there are people all over the world participating via live stream with this experience. So there are a lot of minds focused and a lot of energy flowing. And we had a lot of new conversation yesterday. So let's take you, for example, because you've been playing with us for a while and deliberately processing everything you hear. You don't just hear it and ignore it, or hear it and wait until the next gathering. You hear it and think about it and apply it and test it in your own experience and notice the results of it. And so as the group dynamic causes an expansion, you do your best to stay up to speed with it. Yesterday, the expansion of Source was more significant than it has ever been because of a focused physical environment.
And you could feel it.
So that meant that even those like you and those like Esther, who are staying up to speed and staying up to speed and staying up to speed and staying up to speed, whoosh, getting up to speed was quite a rush.
Indeed.
You see?
Indeed.
So that's what you're talking about.
Okay, that makes sense. When Esther was recounting the story yesterday about her experience in the airport en route to Arizona and seeing the mom with the perfect family, and Esther had asked, what are the thoughts that are allowing this woman to put this in place? And it was, I have lovely children and I love to travel with them. Does it all boil down to simply, is that for any topic we have? I have a lovely life.
I have a lovely life, and things always work out for me. Things are always working out for me. Things are always working out for me.
Right.
Things are always working out for me. Now you can, if you want to really get the momentum of that going, things are always working out for me because there are unseen, non-physical forces who are aware of my desire and are assisting me in the deliberate awareness of every advantage that has been laid out for me. In other words, you see, you've created your reality. It exists in the vortex. You've done all the hard work. Now it's just accepting that things not only are always working out for you, but have already worked out for you. And now your work is to find a vibrational place that allows you to be the receiver, the translator in vivid form of that.
Okay. And finally, so we're going to walk out of here today and having experienced these hours together and...
Everything has changed for you. Everything has changed for you. Nothing is the same for you.
That's right.
Nothing is the same for you.
So when we walk out and we want to maintain that, does it go back to the process? I wake up in the morning and I find a good feeling thought and hang on to that until I feel inspired to do something else?
Every day. Every day for the rest of ever and ever. every day.
And that's the answer.
That is the answer.
That's what I wanted. Thank you very much.